the town was suddenly visited by two unfamiliar beautiful women. Not only were they incredibly beautiful, but their figures were also stunning. All the boys were dumbfounded. They were completely mesmerized. Even the girls were shocked. But what they didn't know was, those two girls were actually two boys in disguise. The only reason they did that was to vent their anger on behalf of their good friend. After finishing their prank, they immediately ran away from the scene. Everyone was laughing so hard that tears wouldn't stop. Their minds were filled with the image of the boys drooling earlier. This is a story about three boys, yet it can make you remember your own youthful days. If you've been feeling lost these past years, then why not follow in the footsteps of these three boys, and search for the version of yourself that once shined brightly? Maybe after watching this story, you'll think of that friend who grew up by your side. The story begins with a boy named Aujan. Aujan was a quiet and introverted kid. His daily life was very limited. During the busy farming seasons, Aujan also had to help handle cattle manure on the farm. This caused him to be ostracized by kids his age in the town. He didn't have any special hobbies, nor could he find anything he could devote himself to wholeheartedly. He didn't get along well with his classmates either, because he had to constantly do farm work. His body carried the smell of manure, so no one at school wanted to be friends with him. He wasn't invited to the annual fireworks festival either, but he did have one friend who truly cared about him. His name was Mitarai. The two bonded over similar interests. They created a duo together, and they named it Don't Glee. They even built their own secret hideout. They decided that even if the town didn't invite them to the fireworks festival, they would host a fireworks festival of their own. But during their first summer break of high school, their duo gained a new member, a mysterious boy from Iceland named Drop. He claimed he had come to Japan to search for treasure. Drop's personality quickly earned their trust, and Drop always had crazy ideas. Even the idea for him and Mitarai to dress up as girls was Drop's, which led to the scene from the beginning of the story. To celebrate the upcoming fireworks festival, Aujan decided to spend all his money to buy the only drone in town. Since this idea came from Drop, Mitarai couldn't really understand it, so he pulled Aujan aside, hoping he wouldn't get tricked by Drop. But Aujan didn't care at all. To him, just being happy together was enough. The three of them went to the secret hideout, ready to test the drone they bought yesterday. Night fell quickly. They took out the fireworks they had prepared, and began their own fireworks festival. Meanwhile, Aujan started testing the drone, but something strange happened. No matter what they tried, the fireworks just wouldn't light. It turned out that, to save money, Aujan had bought expired fireworks. And to make things worse, the expensive drone Aujan bought flew deep into the mountains, right when the town's actual fireworks festival began, and so they missed the entire event. After everything, the three sat dejected by the roadside. This gathering could only be described as a total failure. Mitarai was terrified at the thought of his sister beating him up, because he had stolen her makeup and clothes. But just then, they suddenly heard the sound of fire trucks passing. The town's fireworks festival had caused a wildfire. All the residents rushed to see what was happening. Fortunately, a heavy rain fell that night. The fire didn't spread. The next day, Aujan saw news about the fire, but what he never expected was that the three of them were being rumored as the arsonists. Someone even claimed to have found fireworks they set off, which was considered the strongest evidence, and the police had already begun collecting proof. Mitarai, who studied in the big city, understood very well. Public opinion would soon turn them into real criminals. No matter how they explained, it wouldn't change a thing. Aujan felt depressed. Was there really nothing they could do? Just then, Drop suddenly suggested that they should find the drone. He believed the drone's footage would be the best evidence. Aujan thought they had found a solution, but when they checked the drone's GPS, they discovered it had been blown more than 60 kilometers away, and that location didn't even have a train station, which meant they could only get there by bicycle. After struggling with the decision, the three of them decided to set out immediately to retrieve the drone. They rushed home and began preparing supplies, even though they were going to find the drone. For Aujan, this summer suddenly felt full of excitement, so he secretly took his father's camera. Mitarai, however, brought only some food and homework. Drop showed up with just a scooter and claimed they were about to witness his last adventure, and so, the three boys set off together, laughing and full of energy. However, their journey had only just begun. A roadblock stood in front of them. The entire path had been closed off because of the wildfire. They couldn't continue on bicycles, so they had no choice but to hike through a mountain trail. Because Drop casually changed the original route they planned, Mitarai started to lose his patience. He thought wandering around aimlessly was worse than just turning back. But in the very next second, a patrolling police officer suddenly appeared ahead of them. The two were so shocked that they froze, then immediately took off running. They finally spotted an exit, but they almost got caught by the officer, and just when they thought they had shaken him off, they ran straight into an even bigger problem. A black bear suddenly appeared before them. The three of them were terrified and couldn't move. In that desperate moment, Aujin pulled out a spray can, but the problem was, the spray blew straight back at them because of the wind. The bear didn't get affected at all. Panicking, Aujin ran while spraying wildly. He could only place all his hope on that stupid spray can, but luckily, they managed to escape from the bear, though their eyes were burning painfully from the spray. And that was when Mitarai realized, the so-called bear spray Aujin used was actually just his hair gel. But by the time they came back to their senses, they realized they had gotten lost without noticing. However, just then, Aujin recognized the smell of the soil, and discovered a waterfall with a small stream nearby, so the three decided to rest there for a while. Staring at the waterfall cascading down, Drop began to tell a story. It was a legend he heard while living in Iceland. They say in a great canyon in Iceland, there is a golden waterfall that can split the earth in two, and beneath that waterfall, there is a mysterious red phone booth. If you answer a call there, the voice on the phone will tell you about a hidden treasure. Drop claimed that it was the voice from that phone call that led him to Japan to search for treasure. While they talked, Aujin took out his camera and asked Drop about the distance between Iceland and Ireland. It turned out that Aujin had always liked a girl in his class who lived in Ireland. Her name was Uriasu. Because Aujin didn't have a smartphone, he could only carry an old film camera. He was mocked by classmates for it, but Uriasu didn't laugh at him. Instead, she used that camera to take a picture that became Aujin's favorite, a photo of ladybugs in a field. After a short rest, the three of them began their journey again, but soon the sky grew dark, and in a moment of carelessness, Mitarai slipped and fell into the river. To make matters worse, a wide waterfall was right ahead. Aujin and Drop jumped in to save him, and all three were swept downstream. Fortunately, the waterfall wasn't dangerous at all. In fact, the end of that waterfall was the exact place where they had rested earlier in the day. After facing setback after setback, Mitarai's patience finally reached its limit. He took out all of his frustration on Drop, blaming him for not knowing the way, and for always running ahead as if he did. In the middle of the argument, Mitarai insulted their group name Don't Glee, calling it stupid. Hearing that, Aujin's face instantly showed disappointment. He made an excuse and walked away. The argument between Mitarai and Drop stopped as well, and only then did Mitarai reveal the real reason he was angry. He was tired of his current life, tired of everything arranged by his parents. His parents wanted him to become a doctor, but he didn't want to leave his childhood friends. Life in the big city suffocated him. No matter how hard he studied, he still felt inferior to everyone else, so he attended extra classes non-stop. He even brought study materials on this trip, but Drop told him that to Aujin, Mitarai was the friend he was most proud of. Drop envied how highly Aujin thought of him. Hearing this, Mitarai began to cry. He didn't want Aujin to see him being so vulnerable. Finally, under Drop's comfort, Mitarai smiled again. In fact, Aujin had heard everything from a short distance away, but he immediately jumped into the water, pretending he heard nothing at all. Soon, they climbed up a hill. A gentle breeze blew beneath a sky full of stars. The Milky Way sparkled beautifully. Aujin apologized to Mitarai for earlier, but he didn't blame him. Drop stood beside them, saying that being their friend truly made him happy. Meanwhile, Mitarai finally explained the origin of their group name, Don't Glee. It meant that he and Aujin never smiled and didn't play with the other kids. Drop said that being able to grow up together with your best friend was the happiest thing in the world. Drop may not know what they used to be like, but right now, he thought the two of them were shining brightly. In that moment, the three boys finally opened their hearts to one another. They looked childish beyond measure, dancing silly little dances under the stars. Mitarai even burned his heavy study materials. Right then, they had no worries at all. And in his dream, Aujin saw the golden waterfall and the mysterious red phone booth beside it, and Drop standing alone there. When Aujin woke up, he found Drop washing up by the river. He curiously asked if Drop had truly found the red phone booth by the golden waterfall. Drop immediately replied that of course he had, and because of that, he had come to Japan. He wanted to leave proof that he had been in this world, and he wanted to go on one final adventure. Aojin didn't understand his words. He couldn't understand what final adventure meant, nor what had happened to Drop. So Aojin and Mitarai began to suspect that Drop's body might not be healthy. They worried that the journey ahead might make his condition worse, but Mitarai knew very well that giving up halfway was not who Drop was, because he was always the first one to face hardships head-on. However, it was as if fate was playing a cruel joke on them. The road in front of them had been completely flooded. The three of them stood silently by the water for a long time. The always optimistic Drop suddenly began to cry. He kept apologizing over and over, choking through his tears. Drop said that if he hadn't been so selfish, none of this would have happened. He said, if we were just strangers, then I could just say goodbye to you guys without caring at all. Hearing that, Aojin angrily asked Drop why he was apologizing. He didn't want to be strangers. They were best friends, and it was because Drop appeared this summer that he got to see such beautiful scenery. He wanted to see Drop find the legendary treasure. Hearing his words, it was as if Drop saw the golden waterfall again. His determination was reignited. On their way back, luck finally favored these three disaster-prone boys. In the grass among some ruins, Drop managed to find the lost drone. The three laughed with pure joy. However, the drone they spent 2 days searching for hadn't recorded any footage that could prove their innocence, but fortunately, it recorded every beautiful burst of the town's fireworks. Yet after that day, Drop seemed to vanish from the world. He disappeared completely from Aojin and Mitarai's lives, as if he had never existed at all. Aojin still couldn't believe it. He couldn't accept that Drop would die just like that. They burned everything in their secret base, but on the soda bottle Drop left behind, they noticed something surprising. On the back of the label was a clipping of a map of Iceland, and the overlapping point was exactly where the red phone booth stood beneath the golden waterfall. In that moment, they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The two cut their hair short, just like Drop once did, and then they boarded a plane to Iceland. After countless transfers and asking for directions, they finally saw the golden waterfall Drop talked about. It was exactly as he had described. The massive golden waterfall looked as though it could split the earth in two. In a dazed silence, the sound of a ringing phone suddenly echoed. The sound carried through the entire canyon. When they turned to look, there truly was a red phone booth on the hillside. They ran with all their strength toward it, hoping to answer the call, but when Aojin picked up, there was no voice. The call was silently disconnected, but then Mitarai noticed something on the glass, a soda label. Aojin recognized Drop's handwriting immediately. It read, "My treasure, the friends who witnessed my final shining summer at 15. Back in middle school, Aojin once made a phone call to confess to Uriasu, but because Mitarai dialed the wrong country code, the call that was supposed to go to Ireland was accidentally connected to Iceland, and the person who answered that call was Drop, who was living there at the time. Drop had already been suffering from a terminal illness, and he had lost almost all hope. But that one phone call gave him a reason to keep going, and in the final days of his life, he traveled to meet Aojin and Mitarai. This bond that crossed countries and oceans led to the adventure the three boys shared that summer, and became the most precious treasure of their youth. But then, who was the one calling the red phone booth just now? The story ends here. Some people say that growing up means constantly losing things, but this story tells us firmly, there are things that will never disappear. The friendship we used to give everything to protect, and the determination to keep walking together. After finishing this story, maybe you'll think of the friend who grew up beside you, and even if you no longer keep in touch now, maybe, if there's a chance, just call them and ask how they've been.